Right, I haven't done a video for a while, so welcome back to anyone who's been out there wondering where I've been. Just been a bit busy. I'll talk about what kind of ventures I've been busy with later on in another post. What I thought I'd do now is have a look at a certain Gambit. Now, I don't know if some of you out there might be following the Anand Topalov matches, the games played. In that match, one of the positions that seems to be coming up a lot is after d4, d5, c4, c6, knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, and here I think after d takes c4, which is been Anand's main choice in this match, Topalov has played a4. And most of these games have sort of reached quite a middle game stroke ending where White is the only one who's going to try to win the position, but they're quite boring positions. Now, what I wanted to look at in this post really was another way that White could play after d takes c4. Now I'm going to have a look at some theory in this with two games that I've played. The first game I'm going to show you is a game I played against K.Coats. Now this is a match I played for Sandhurst against Crowthorne, two rival clubs in the local league. Now Ken's a good, dangerous player who's been playing chess for a long time now. He's very experienced and very good tactically minded, and he's got good positional understanding as well. But the gambit I've always chosen to play in this position, instead of playing a rather dry a4, well, a4 can lead to very exciting positions, but the move I've always chosen to play is e4 here, and this is the gambit we're going to look at. I'm not sure if it's got a name, this move e4, but well, let's just have a look at the resulting position after Black's most logical move. Well, at the moment the pawn on c4 is on pre, so Black really wants to defend this, otherwise he's not really going to have any trumps. So the normal way to respond to this e4 is by b5. So let's just sum up this gambit position now. I mean, okay, Black is a pawn up, but White does have these two very strong central pawns, and in general I enter a lot of positions like this where White has these central pawns in exchange for a wing pawn. So that's one good thing that White's got here, these strong central pawns. What else can White do? Well, Black's king is a little bit tricky to find a place to go, because if it castles queenside here, obviously it's going to be a bit exposed because he's pushed these pawns over here. If he goes kingside, well, White can often start an attack over there as well. So it's quite an unbalanced, interesting gambit list, and if you want to try this in your games, it'll certainly lead to some interesting positions. Okay, so I followed up with e5 here against Ken, which is the normal continuation. Knight d5 is the best response. This is the best square for the black knight, obviously. And now a4, which is the main continuation in this position. Basically, White needs to try to break up this pawn formation over here on the queen side by playing moves like a4, etc. Okay, and now my opponent played e6. The other move that Black can play here is h6. Which stops any funny business on the g5 square. Against h6, I think quite a good way to play is a takes b5, and now if Black takes the pawn back, White can just win his pawn back on b5 by going knight takes b5, so Black's pretty much forced to take on c3, and then after b takes c3, c takes b5. A good move here that Ivanchuk's played before is bishop to a3. Now this bishop to a3 serves 2 points. It cuts across this line here, so if Black ever plays the move e6, we can then take on f8, and Black can't castle anymore, so that's one good reason. Another quite crafty move that this bishop a3 does, it allows the queen in some positions to swing over to b1, which puts pressure on b5. And let's say for example Black goes bishop to b7 after bishop to a3. Well, then a good continuation here is queen to b1, pawn to a6, bishop takes c4 might not be good here, excuse me, because the knight on f3 might be captured, even though that leads to quite a complicated position after queen b7 at the end of the complications. But maybe after a6, White can prepare this for something like knight to d2 first, when he's threatening to take on c4, and another idea is to plonk this knight into the e4 square. Another reason why the queen on b1 is quite good, because we give extra protection to this square. Anyway, that's going back to the position after a4, h6. e6 is the main move. And now I played knight to g5, which has been my favourite choice for many a time, many a game, many a year. And you can really see the potential in White's position here. I'm just throwing everything at the black king. My queen's going to come zooming out over here, maybe to this square. We're going to come down to f7 and checkmate. Well, that's the aim of the Gambit anyway. So for a pawn, white's got quite interesting compensation here. So knight to g5, very interesting move. Now my opponent played bishop to b7. Now this is not the best way to meet this knight to g5 move. I mean, it's a bit too passive, this. Some other options, well, bishop to b4 has been played, but again, I don't think this is particularly good because white just plays bishop to d2. And then if black tries to get tricky here, let's say if knight takes c3, b takes c3, bishop takes c3, I can just go capture back on c3, and in fact captures the knight on g5, then I capture on b5 with a very good position for white. For example, c takes b5 and now lose a rook. Can you see how? It's queen to f3. So after knight to g5 or bishop to b4 is not the best response. The main two moves are either h6, which we're going to have a look at in the next post. So hopefully I'll get that up at some point today or tomorrow. I had a game against John Anderson, a very good player in this line with h6, a player I lost to at Hastings tournament. Another idea that black can play is bishop to e7, and then white plays h4 normally, and then black goes h6. So these two lines we'll have a look at another post. Anyway, after knight to g5, my opponent just played bishop to b7. So what should white do? Well, you're pawn down, so you've got to act actively, and you might as well threaten checkmate. It's queen to h5. This is slightly more active square than f3. So I'm threatening checkmate on f7. There's a couple of ways to stop this. My opponent played queen to d7. I think this is the best way to stop it. If my opponent had played g6, well, this weakens really this f6 square too much. The dark squares, I mean, for example, after I play queen to f3, which still threatens this checkmate on the f7 square, and now let's say black now plays queen to d7, well, white can now play knight on g to e4. Sorry about lots of lines here. I'll just try to explain some of these mad green and red lines I put up on the board. Well, for a start, white's threatening to play knight takes d5 and knight to f6 check, which is quite devastating. Also, the white bishop could come into g5, taking control of some dark squares. Another common plan in this position is h4, h5, just pressurising black's king side. So this would be a very good position, hence why after queen to h5, my opponent played queen to d7. And now I just aim to get castled as quickly as possible, so bishop to e2. Now knight to h7 would walk into knight to b4, and this is a very greedy pawn that I've taken on h7. I mean, if anyone's king is more weak now, it's my king on e1, so I've really got to try to get castled as quickly as possible, hence why I play bishop to e2. Now I really expected my opponent to play knight to b4 here. He took on c3, which I think is a mistake. Knight to b4 was interesting and critical when I was planning the following line. I was planning to give up another pawn, but in exchange I was hoping my development would give me a good attack. For example, castles, knight to c2, and rook to b1, knight takes d4, and now rook to d1. So first of all, taking advantage of this pin on the d file. An immediate threat in this position might be rook takes d4 when my queen is coming down to not f6, that would be silly, f7. So that's one immediate threat. So let's say black plays c5 here. What do I do now? Well, I was just going to continue with bishop to e3, just developing my last piece. And I thought I had quite good compensation for the two pawns here. Okay, I mean, for example, after g6, I was going to go queen to h4, and black's king still hasn't found a safe home, and I'm threatening to destroy this knight on d4. And this is the kind of position that black's got, which could just fall apart very quickly because his position's not that stable. My pawn on a4 is attacking a pawn on b5, and the knight on d4 is unstable. The rook on d line is putting some pressure on the black's position. So it's so basically, yeah, black has to be very careful in this position. But I think black should have still gone for this. Anyway, after bishop to e2, my opponent took on c3. I took back, and now my play becomes a lot easier to get over. So knight to a6, my opponent played. The idea of going knight to c7 to d5. So I played bishop to f3. This is a good idea to put more pressure on black's position. And if black had gone knight to c7 here, well, I just take on b5, and black can no longer take the c pawn because of his bishop on b7. So after bishop to f3, Ken kicks my queen away with g6. I played queen to g4, and now he castled. Well, his king's got to go somewhere, I suppose, but it's not particularly safe over there on the queen side either. Okay, so I took on c5, my turn took back, and now I just simply castled here. Okay, well, I can win back material immediately with something like bishop takes b7, check, queen takes b7, and now knight takes f7. Now this would win back my pawn. For example, queen takes f7, rook takes a6. But I thought maybe my opponent could play something like queen to f5 and exchange queens. Okay, I'm a lot better here because I'm going to win another pawn on a7. But I wanted to try to keep the queens on and finish the game quickly. I mean, I thought that the fruit's already, it's kind of ripe, but it's not ripe enough for the picking yet. So let's just increase the pressure. I wanted to get my king castled, and I really just wanted to get my last piece into the game, the bishop, so my other rook could shoot over to b1. And I thought there's no point taking any material quite yet. So anyway, black's position was pretty horrible. He went h5. I went queen to g3. Queen to f4 looks logical, but I didn't want to allow my opponent to go bishop to h6 when he might be able to exchange some pieces off. So queen to g3. King to b8, so I put my bishop on e3. So as you can see from diagrams, one idea is to push this d pawn, which happens in the game when my bishop is unleashed, and my rook on f1 wants to come flying into the game. Knight to c7, so my opponent's struggling for plans, so he tries to get his knight to d5. But now I capture on b7, king takes b7, and now I made quite an interesting choice to play d5 here. Of course, I can win the exchange of queen to f3, but again, I thought black may be able to hang on here with something like knight to d5, knight takes f7, and then when I win the exchange, I thought, well, it's obviously very good, this position for white, but black's knight on d5 makes it a little bit difficult for me to break through here. So after king takes b7, I decided to keep the pressure up, and I played d5. It's a much more attacking, aggressive move here. My opponent didn't want me to take on a7, so he played a6 himself, and now I played d6. So this pawn has become a complete monster now. And the game finished, knight to d5. Now I play queen to f3. A bit different to last time, so my pawns reached the d6 square, which has unleashed my bishop, plus other things. Bishop to h6 was played. Knight to e4, so I'm threatening knight to c5 check, which should be most unpleasant for black. So black took on e3. Bishop takes e3. F takes e3, and now black blundered with king to b6. Black had to play queen to c6, trying to get off this pin on this diagonal here, when okay, I can win a couple of pawns and like f7, etc., when I've got a very good position, but it's better than king to b6. Maybe you can spot what the win is here. A little puzzle for you to end this video up with. Okay, I've got lots of tempting moves, but black's king is clearly exposed on the queen side, so let's get the boys around. Let's checkmate the black king. How do we go about doing it? Well, queen to d1, and after this move my opponent resigned. The simple idea is to come to d4 with check when black is helpless. One line I was looking at in the game, for example, was rook to c8, queen to d4 check, king to b7. Okay, another little puzzle if you want. I can play knight to c5 check here, which should be good enough to win, but I've got a much stronger move here. How can I destroy black's defences around his queen side? By opening up some more files against his king. Well, rook takes a6 would have been a nice finish when play could continue. Rook king takes, rook to a1 check, and we get to checkmate with a series of checks. Bang, 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 and the queen comes back to d4 with checkmate. So quite a good game. That I was quite happy the way things went there. It shows you how dangerous this gambit can be. So I really wish that Topalov would give it a go. Of course, he's not going to give it a go because these top grandmasters don't like risking anything, especially in a World Championships match. I mean, I suppose if you can have a safe advantage without any risk, then why go down this crazy line? But if I have a chance to play Anand, then well, I'd give this line a whirl straight away. So please leave any comments. I'll post another video up on this opening so you can hopefully learn some new theory. Cheers, and I'll catch you later.